founders, it's Christy Bareijsza, and I'm your catalyst to finding her. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Finding Her. Here we are, holy shit. So excited. This has been a long time coming, and it is so exciting to have a mic right now, which I know people are probably a little bit concerned about, but hey, such is life. My name is Christy Bareijsza, and I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I am not a life coach. Hell, I am just an average woman in her 40s. Okay, late 40s, and like most, just have experienced overwhelming changes, both personally and professionally, that have put me in places that I never thought I would be at this point in my life. So as you probably can tell from my accent, I am a Jersey girl born and raised, but I have actually lived all over this country, from New York City to Miami to Los Angeles to smack in the middle in the heart of Dallas, Texas. And while I was in the midst of one of the most challenging decades of my life between moving, a marriage, a divorce, a pandemic that literally decimated my business to the point of bankruptcy, I realized I was not alone in this journey. And it had become such a critical point that I understood, as challenging as it was, I just couldn't give up. So, don't get me wrong. In the last 10 years, it has felt like a daily crisis, which often caused a spontaneous yelling, "What the actual fuck?" Which I usually do in public because, like I said, I am from Jersey, and we do those things at the most inopportune times and usually cause people to clutch their pearls, but hey, it's what our charm is. But it happened over and over again to the point where I couldn't ignore it. And, the difference was that as much as life in general was overwhelming, terrifying, and heartbreaking, I just got to the point where I just refused to let this bullshit get the best of me. That's where I began to realize that I was experiencing a series of common emotional stages that were triggered by each experience and kind of layered. And with that, I started working through each stage and wasn't realizing that subconsciously I was uncovering these different steps to recover myself and kind of become a whole person once again. What made this experience more ironic was that these situations and experiences just kept presenting themselves over and over and over again to me. And I would just have random women come up to me where they would just start asking me questions about dating, starting over, their divorce, building a business again. And it just became something so common that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And honestly, it was really, really unsolicited because I have resting bitch face. Most people I would think wouldn't approach me. I wouldn't approach me, but they were. And something drew them to me and the situation where I just got to the point where I couldn't ignore it. So finally, a light bulb went off, and I probably should mention I am a real blonde, so it often takes me a minute to do it, and to kind of go, oh, I got an idea. But with that, I realized that there were certain commonalities that were happening and certain steps that were taking me to the next level and then the next level after that to kind of get my self-confidence back, understand where I am, understand my values, and understand that I needed to rebuild my self-esteem and move forward as a whole person. So with that, I started kind of putting everything down on paper and really, mapping out this whole process that I didn't even realize I was going through. But I'm also a person too that I really believe in putting things together in a way that have the flexibility of just dealing with the gray area. Because a lot of times things are not very black and white. And I am not from the school of, oh, I did this, now you too can do this for $99.95 plus shipping and handling. That is not what we're doing. We are working through this together. We are understanding that what worked for me, maybe parts of it can work for you. Maybe all of it can work for you. I'm going to say most of it. I'm not going to say none of it because I really think that a lot of this is about centering yourself and understanding what you need as a person. So it will always work. It's just going to work in different ways, in different time periods. So as you may or may not be able to tell, I am a Gen Xer. And as you all know, we are a take no prisoners kind of crew. But this mindset and this way of living is not just limited to one generation. It is limited to all women. And that's why I've called this whole concept, this whole podcast, this whole revelation, Finding Her. So here we are. Welcome. So like everything else, we are here to help you define your badassness and figure out what happened, what you're doing right now, and where you're going, which is the first step by being right here. And, you know, I am so proud of you. And with that first step, you have already found her. So that's why I'm calling you my founders, because, you know, it's a bit of a play on words. It's, you know, I do marketing and branding for a living. Of course, you know, we're going to come up with something creative. But the bottom line is I am so proud of you and we're in it together. So cheers to that. But I do have a few disclaimers, and I actually wrote them down because I want to make sure that as we're doing this together, you understand a few things about me. So, number one, I am not perfect. I don't claim to be. I am not. I fuck up shit all the time. And you know what? The best part about it is I will continue to fuck it up. But it is something that I will always own. I will be accountable for. And if I make a mistake, I always apologize. And because it's about knowing that we're learning together, and it's also your experiences are going to intertwine with my experiences, and that's pretty cool, and we're going to learn from each other. So don't forget that, though, because I'll remind you 50,000 times. Number two, I may or may not say things that you agree with, but that's okay. The great thing about this country is that we are a democracy. We do have our own right to speak our minds, and we do speak our minds based on our experiences. And that's what makes it great. Freedom of speech, it's a wonderful thing. And you know what? Difference of opinions is also a wonderful thing too. And what I'm doing is telling you what worked for me, and that may not work for you. But it also gives you a different perspective on maybe something that you've been looking at. And a lot of times, often too, when you're starting to look at stuff just so closely like this, you tend to lose perspective. So here might be a different perspective that could be a game changer for you. Number three, I love using 4-letter words at the most inappropriate time. So fuck, shit, everything. It's all coming out. And it usually comes out colorfully. And sometimes I use them as nouns, verbs, all that good stuff. So, sorry in advance. Hope you're over 18. Number 4, I can be an asshole, which I can, but I am real, and my sole intention is to support you on this journey. You know, you are my drive and inspiration, and I want to help you find yours. So as much as you might not love what I say or what I do or how I deliver it, it's about what is behind it, and it's about being real, and it's about being that person that talks to you and shoots straight with you, which not everybody loves, but you know what? You can respect. And that's my other one. Life is short, and it's not promised. So if we're going to waste time on bullshit, it's not going to help you, and it's not going to help me. So as much as you might not like what I say or what I do or disagree or feel as though, you know, it might not be impactful, I respect you, you respect me, and it's a respectful forum. And that's what's so great about it. And so here we are. It's like a first date. Hopefully there's a second, third, fourth, and fifth date. Okay. So let me start talking a little bit more about who I am, because I know at this point you're like, who the hell is this bitch? Why is she telling me what to do, and why am I listening? So my name is Christy Bareijsza, and I am the last of the Bareijsas, which is why I will always keep that last name. I feel like there's a little bit of a legacy to it, and even though no one can spell it, including me most of the time, you'll never forget it. I'm not going to say I'm a relationship expert, but it depends on what you define as a relationship, because, you know, I've had a lot of them. And, you know, so if you want to base it on volume, I guess I could be, but I have been engaged twice in my 20s. I called both of them off. My father's still mad about that. Usually like 6 months before I'm supposed to get married. And then one was, but in my defense, one was an NFL player and one was a finance bro. So statistically, they probably wouldn't have lasted anyway. And then I did finally get married in my 40s and got divorced 5 years later. So I'm not saying that I am perfect, and I'm also saying that I can also relate to someone who's been married for 20 years or 30 years and also going through those same life changes, because I kind of understand all aspects of relationships and also not afraid to walk away from one, which is something that I always felt like was really important. So I actually have a real job, believe it or not. I've been an event professional for well over 20 years, and I work in the corporate and social realm. What makes it kind of great with what I do and kind of how this podcast is tied in is because I provide an intangible service. So one of the things that has been really important as much as planning and production and dealing with creative is that I really need to understand people, read people, feel what their needs are, understand, communicate. And it's something that almost ironically ties into this in an odd way, but in a way that I've also learned how to mitigate damages and see where liabilities are. And I've kind of taken that and intertwined my skills and my profession into this podcast. So, when I do plan weddings and especially when they know about the podcast and know, about my relationship life, it always becomes a little bit uncomfortable where they're like, oh, so you've been divorced and now you're planning my wedding. And it's like, it's not necessarily about that. It's about the day. It's about the production. It's about all these wonderful things that happen. But I will tell you, I know the couples that will last and I know the couples that will not last in 2 years like that instantly. And, it's about, the treatment of each other. It's about the priorities. It's about a lot of different things. So it's odd how event planning has helped me in so many other aspects of my life of just really, truly understanding. And, I digress. I do this all the time. I will ping pong all over the place. So buckle up. It's happening. I am not for everyone's taste. I will tell you that. I have been told over and over again, I have a very polarizing personality, but I am entertaining and I am also inclusive. For me, every person is welcome. Whether it's man, female, this is not a bashing situation. This is not a women can do it better. This is about finding yourself and doing what's right for you, which then falls in place to be able to be a better person for everyone around you. This is not a divorce and now I have to deal with my life. It's not a get remarried. It's not anything. It's about building who you are as a person, to allow yourself to flourish, to be creative, to be inspired, to be whole again, so that your next steps in your life, whatever they look like, whether you do get married again, whether you continue your marriage, whether, you continue to build a career that maybe you didn't have, whatever those things are, you're going to be able to do them in such a more solid and successful and forward-thinking motion. And that's the big picture. And that's the true meaning behind finding her. Because a lot of times you'll get some women in the room and it'll get catty or it'll get competitive and it'll get to the point where it becomes something it's not. And that is not what we're going to do. That is not tolerated. We are here to help each other. We are here to be straight. We are here to be genuine. We are here to understand that we are straight shooting with each other and that honesty is the best policy. Transparency is the best policy because that is what makes a difference. There's so much on the internet and social media that's just all fabricated. We're sticking. This is real. I grew up in a generation we didn't have the internet, and I am thankful for that, especially in my college years. So if you know me, don't talk. But that being said, it's about genuine understanding, authenticity, and also just learning and supporting each other. And that's what I'm here to do. So these relatable stories I will be telling from my perspective. So if you're involved in these stories and you think that they were different or happened differently, those are from your perspective. But, what we're going to do to protect the innocent and protect the guilty is, just keep them one name. So I came to find out that the most common name out there is James. So I thought it's great, because we've got James, we've got Jamie, we've got Jimmy, like all these different names that we can just use for all one person. So, it keeps everything ground level. It doesn't make it, challenging for those that, might have not, or could have been the villain in the story. So each week we're going to tackle a different step that is going to help you grow and just make you look inside to really kind of build yourself to become a better sister, lover, friend, mother, daughter, colleague, partner, whatever the case is. And it's something that can be used whether you're in the midst of a personal crisis or you're leading up to a crisis or you're coming out of a crisis, because in each person is going to experience different things in their lives. But you're going to soon to realize as we go through these different steps, there's a lot of common factors in there that are going to hit home. As we all know, relationships are really, really tough. And, sadly enough, at this point, 50% of marriages end in divorce, and second marriages, there's a 65% chance of the same thing happening again. So at this point, what we're trying to do is protect that from happening again, based on what your choices are and based on who you are. And we're going to bet on yourself. Because when you bet on you, everything else is going to fall into place. So at this point, shit happens in life all the time. And unfortunately, starting over sucks. But, at this point, it's never too late to start. So as I'm going to make a very, very, very long story short, what I'm doing and why I'm here is that I am a catalyst for change. So I am here to help you get through this bullshit with a smile, with a laugh, with support, with an understanding that we're in it together. So welcome, finders, to Finding Her. So enough about me. Let's get into the first topic, which is starting over. Let's talk about finding her, and let's dive into the first topic, which I think is such a hard topic to deal with. But it's so simple, which is starting over. Yeah. At some point, everyone comes to the realization that the train has left the station and it's not coming back, and it is devastating. And, at that point in your life, you will look at things and say, why am I here? Why did this happen? You also will just start looking at others, and I think that women immediately start comparing themselves to others, which makes it even more difficult. Like, this didn't happen to her. Why did this happen? Or on social media, this looks like this or this looks like that. And at that point, you have to realize each and every person has their own journey. And those journeys aren't always revealed online or revealed in public or really revealed personally to your friends. That some people are fighting a lot of those journeys on their own very quietly. And we're here to give a forum to that and give opportunity to kind of listen and learn and, be impacted in a way that's really positive. And, it could be a divorce. It could be a breakup. It could be the kids leaving the house. It could be losing your job. I mean, starting over happens, moving. I mean, everything. There's so many things that starting over could qualify under. And it's something that usually happens when we least expect it. And when it does happen that way, it makes you spiral. And in your 20s, you often think it's a big deal. And you'll get a lot of, older generations saying, well, that's not a big deal. Imagine doing it in your 40s, or imagine doing it in your 50s or your 60s. And it's, it's a big thing whenever it happens. And yes, there are some factors, let's be realistic. There are some factors to it that as you are, older, you tend to have more of a bigger risk in the sense of, you might be transitioning to the next stage of your life. You might be transitioning to retirement, or, you feel as though, there was a level of security that you thought you'd have the rest of your life, and now all of a sudden you don't have it. Sometimes women will feel like there's more to lose, which, you can't always define how important it is as far as that, because everyone has something to lose, especially when they're starting over. And, you just a lot of times will feel judged for it, and you'll feel overwhelmed, and you'll feel disenchanted. And, beginning over again doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be really fucking exciting. So the bottom line is that, life can throw us a curveball and it can become a total shit show. And I found this great quote about starting over that inspires me. And it's something that I have to remind myself often. And, I do read it over and over again because I do forget myself. As I said, I'm not perfect. And starting over is a continual process. But so here's the quote. that was for emphasis. Here it is. Finding your true self is an act of love. Expressing it is an act of rebellion. Let me have that sit with you for a minute and just think about that. Because sometimes life requires starting over, and there's just different aspects that are involved in it that gets you to the point where you have that realization that you have to now officially take that first step. And number one, age is just a fucking number, okay? Life begins when you set yourself free of judgment. So I've had so many people come to me and they're in their 40s and they're like, I'm divorced. Who wants me now? I mean, they've been in a marriage for 20 plus years. It wasn't a healthy marriage. It wasn't a happy marriage. It may have been in the beginning, but over time, just things have just, had them part ways, or, whether it was infidelity, whether there was love that was lost, whether, kids, family, life, whatever got in the way. And next thing you know it, there's a divorce. And a lot of times people feel as though they need to instantly get married again, or they need to instantly have some type of validation of who they are. The bottom line is you are your own validation. And that's where that mindset really, really needs to change. And that's kind of where that quote gets into the deepness of it all, is that you have to look inside and see who the fuck you are. Because people are going to tell you you're this, or you're that, or you're supposed to be this, because this is what society tells you. That is not the way it works. You are who you are because of your experiences, because of your love, your life, your family, all of those things in the years that you have been on this great earth are the things that make you who you are, and it's authentic. And a lot of times women are so afraid to be authentically themselves. And that first step, if you cannot find that within you, you'll never get through this first step. And, going back to the divorce situation, women will use their identity as their husband's identity, their partner's identity, whatever that case is, their job, whatever those things are, they're looking at that as their identity versus them as a person as their identity. And they're so afraid to just be okay with who they are at that moment right now. And it's a scary situation. I mean, for me, I didn't want to get married for a while. I just never felt the need to get married. I come from parents that have been married for 50 plus years. It's just, for me, I just never emphasized on that. I'm also an entrepreneur, which a lot of the times my focus was more on building my business relationships than my personal relationships in that element, which, like I said, I'm not perfect, but it worked for me. But it's one of those things of really truly understanding who you are. And when you do get divorced at that point, whether you're 48, 28, 38, 58, sometimes there's situations where you're widowed, and life just throws that curveball at you. And when it does, you're still a person. You're still a whole person. You're still an amazing person. And when you're not gonna realize that right away. And sometimes that's when you have to look back and say, my life isn't over. My life just began, and this is the next chapter. Because there's so many chapters that your life is going to have. And that's the first thing, is changing that mindset of saying, okay, my life isn't over. I now have been given a full set of new opportunities to take that next step, which is pretty freaking amazing, because most people might not get that. And, that's something that is really, really cool. And it's scary because you're no longer comfortable with what you have. But that scariness helps you grow, helps you build creativity, helps you be innovative, helps you motivate yourself because you don't have a choice. And that's what I did. I mean, for me, getting divorced, I waited till I was in my 40s to get married. I figured this was the last marriage I was going to have, or my one and only, I should say, my first and last. And 5 years later, it was done. And, the biggest lesson that I learned was to love myself and to put myself first. That was lesson number one. But lesson number two was that I was that unhappy. And I learned that, you know what? Life is also about learning from your mistakes. And it triggered a move. It triggered I had to do what was best for me, which at that point, after I filed for divorce, was moving everything from, I lived in LA for 8 years. I adore LA. I adore West Hollywood. I miss it daily. I miss the ocean. Look at me. Now I'm getting all upset. That's how much I miss it. But with that, sometimes the energy gets stagnant and sometimes the energy gets dull. And sometimes you just really need to shake things up. And I had looked for a while as I was making this decision to, do I go back to Florida? I lived in Miami for a couple of years. I didn't love it. There was an energy there that made me feel stagnant. I looked up and down the coast. Do I, move to San Diego? Do I move to Santa Barbara? Do I move to, San Francisco? There were a number of different places. And for some reason, Dallas just kept coming up on my radar. And it was one of those things where I just would go back and forth and say, all right, I don't know why it feels like this is the right decision. In my head, I didn't think it was, but in my heart and my gut, it was telling me this was the right decision. And sometimes you have to listen to that voice because that voice is going to tell you what is really happening and what decisions you truly do need to make at that point in time, which are not always easy. They're so fucking hard. But, packed everything up and sold most of my furniture because I am queen of selling stuff and just starting over because I don't mind having a fresh look. Like sometimes you need to take new energy. You have to take new design. Like, it's kind of exciting too to be able to buy new stuff and feel good about that, and you have some things obviously you keep from your past, but having new things, it's going shopping and putting things together. For me as a creative person, I love to do that stuff anyway. So that being said, finding that location, moving here, I almost didn't think about it. I just did it. And it was odd how things started falling into place because I went to look at apartments and I looked at 10 different places in Dallas, and there was always like one thing that was wrong with it. And it wasn't that it was bad. It wasn't that, but I was, I'm also high maintenance and a little picky, but it's also one of those things where I'd be like, this is right, except this. This is right, except that. And ironically, I was here with my aunt, who has been supportive, who also went through a divorce and, could really sympathize with what I was trying to do by starting over and was very supportive about it. And the very last night that I was there, we were going to go to dinner and I was tired. I was over it. I was kind of feeling a little bit depressed after looking at 10 places, which is excessive. And that being said, when I looked at it, I just said to her, I said, hey, why don't we just order room service? We were in a hotel. Let's just order room service. I'm tired. I don't care. And she had said, hey, there's this restaurant that we went to in Miami. It was her favorite restaurant in the whole world. And it's a female chef. So I'll give them a shout out. Yardbird. Love you guys. When I was in Miami and she would visit me in Miami, Yardbird had started there and it was a great restaurant. And she was like, she said, hey, let's just go there for dinner. Like, let's just have a good meal. I know you're disheartened. I know you're frustrated. And just let's go. Get in the car. She didn't give me a choice. Get in the car. Let's go. So we go over to dinner. And as we're in dinner, I'm looking at this place that's attached to the restaurant. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, this place is beautiful. I looked at it online and I was like, wow, this is gorgeous. I can't afford this place. And of course, there's an apartment there and it's within my budget, within my range. I was like, no, this is impossible. It looks like it has everything that I would want. How could that happen? So I left a voicemail and said, hey, I'm on a flight back to LA. I have to be at the airport by 10 o'clock. Can I meet at 9 o'clock? And, and I assumed that, someone would be busy. They wouldn't get my voicemail. Something would happen, like all the usual things that happen, because this was almost too good to be true. And I got the call at 8:30 saying, hey, the next morning, that 8:30 in the morning, hey, we can meet you at 9 o'clock. We'll get you out of here by 9:30, no problem. I looked at the place, absolutely loved it. Everything that I wanted was there, and I got an application. And by the time I landed in LA, I had an apartment, which was crazy. And, when things are meant to be, things are meant to be. And you just sometimes have to trust that process and not strong arm it. And I tell this story because I'm not going to say that I got an apartment, it was happily ever after and everything was wonderful and this and that. I mean, moving my stuff and landing there, I was at the moment, I had 42 what the actual fuck moments. Like it was a daily thing. I mean, it was crazy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't something that was like to just re-up my life and just say, okay, I'm going to go from this to being married to having this, life in West Hollywood to moving to Dallas, where I did know some people, but not in the immediate area and not in, that location where I did have a community coming in or I had family or whatever the case was. I basically, was moving there blind. and that's scary. And I look back on it, and I've done it in Miami, I've done it in LA, and now I've done it here. So I've kind of gotten used to it. But it's also something that it needed to happen. It's, and looking back on that, it had me grow as a person. It had me, because if I stayed in California, I might have not gotten divorced. My business might have been, suffering a bit more post-pandemic. I may have fallen into old habits versus not having the choice to do that, which made it a big, difference. Because another thing in this is just that, you have to make that conscious choice to choose yourself. And as women, that's very, very, very hard to do. So when you're doing that, you have to look at it and say, hey, you know what? This is what's going to work for me. And, I only had 2 dogs. I didn't have children at the time. But even with children, you can't help them if you can't help yourself first. So you have to always make that conscious decision to choose yourself, choose what's going to be the best and most healthy for you to grow as an individual. And when you do, everything else falls into place. And it's not going to be easy. Absolutely not going to be easy. But, it's also something that deep down, when those challenges are presented to you, it's almost like you need to take that risk, because it's scary. It's not conventional, but the things that come out of it, which are this podcast. I mean, the things that come out of it, which my business is much more secure. Things like I've been meeting great people in my life. Like there's different things that come out of it that you would never know unless you took that risk. But you have to choose yourself first, because we as women were mostly raised to take care of others, because we are the nurturers, we are the gatherers, we are the mothers, the sisters, we are the friends that hold everything together. But you have to hold it together for yourself first, because if you don't, then you can't hold it together for anybody else. And it's as simple as that. And I know that it's not, it's easier said than done, but it is what it is. And another thing too is that you have to be accountable for how you got to this point, because this is going to give you strength. The victim mentality is very real. And it's hard for me to deal with, because we've all had bullshit. Like, we have all been through bullshit, with relationships, with jobs, with life. I mean, a story I will tell about me is I'm a survivor of 9/11. Survivor's guilt is real. Like, what do you do? How do you make these choices in life that lead you to where you are now? And part of the reason I have been so open with that, and so open with being able to move around and make different decisions so clearly, is part of having that experience of going to work every day. And if, everyone was going to work like they normally do, and for some, it was their last. And life is never promised. Growing old is never promised. Good health is never promised. These are things that are so important that you have to realize that every day is truly a blessing. And if you don't make the best of it and choose yourself every fucking time, you're wasting time. You're wasting life. You're wasting just these beautiful things that can come out of it. And, but you have to be accountable. You cannot be a victim, because nobody sat there and told you had to make that decision. You had to get married. You had to get this. We are not in a society that you have to do anything. And yes, society does put some pressure on certain things, but the bottom line is you are your own captain of the ship, and you make your own decisions on what you want to do based on those circumstances. But the different part of society is that with those circumstances, you also have the ability to make them happen too. So if you feel like you only have this to work with, you can make your own future and help yourself build in a different direction to make other opportunities happen too. And that's that mindset that you just have to just not fall into, because it's very much something that I see. And in different parts of the country, living in different cities, it's different for each woman, or there's different insecurities that we all have, from New York to especially Dallas, where, New York City, it's not that common to get married. It's not that common. You'll be in a relationship, or you might have a roommate just because the cost of living there is so high, but it's also, you're focused on, bigger, better, faster. You're focused on work and your career and, just succeeding in that constant need for competition, which can also get in the way. But you're not a victim. Like, if your relationship didn't work, it's 2 equal parts, and you have to take accountability for what you did for it. And that's okay, because you learn from it, and then you move on and you don't do it for the next one. I mean, there's billions of people, and, with billions of people, you will meet that right person that's good for you at that right time. But you have to trust that you've done the healing, and you've done the looking into yourself and just being like, the fuck happened? And sometimes it makes sense to write it down. I mean, listen, like I said, I will repeat myself 50 fucking times. I am not perfect. And, but in each relationship that I saw myself, and ones that lasted and ones that didn't, I saw how I got in them and how I got out of them, and how I made sure not to recreate that again, because I've done it a couple times. I haven't learned the lesson every single time. And I did go through some phases, especially in my 20s and early 30s, where it's not me, or I'm going to work this out, or I'm going to do what I want to do, where I did choose myself, but chose myself in a way that wasn't necessarily healthy, where I want this is what I want, not thinking of all the alternatives that come around to it, thinking that this was what it was supposed to be versus allowing it to become what it should be. And seeing it in a different perspective, which was, something that I found to be really important, and a lesson that I've learned. And karma's real. Sometimes, you say, okay, well, I really wanted to cheat on this person, and then you cheat on them, and there's consequences that come with that. So you're not a victim. You made that decision. You did choose yourself, but you chose yourself in a way that you really weren't choosing yourself. Because if you chose yourself, you would have gotten out of that relationship. You would have made yourself whole again, and then moved on to the next one, which may have been that person, may have not been that person, may have been something greater, whatever the case is. But it's something where you have to look at things and just also feel like, when you build your own brand, you make your own money, when you do things that are of it for you. And yes, there were couples that, or relationships that would be like, a woman would be caring for the kids, where, the man would be working, whatever it was. It just, knowing that you always have something that's for you, whether you have your own account, you have your own side job, you have your own thing that allows you to be your own person, where you have that creative flow, you have that outlet, you have the ability to be inspired, you have that ability to kind of motivate yourself or others. Those things as an individual, even in relationships where you might not be the sole breadwinner, they're going to be more sustainable because you are accountable for yourself and your own happiness. So it just really kind of builds on that versus just being like, well, I was home and I raised the kids and then he was out cheating and he did this and he did this and he did everything to me. No, because it's not just that. Because you didn't become a person, you became something of somebody else instead of being your own individual person. And, that could just be in a regular relationship, whatever the case is. But that's that kind of trigger that when you lose who you are and you become that victim and you just see it as this happened to me versus I made this happen, it changes the whole mindset of it all. And that's the thing too. Like, if you continue to live in a state of denial, you are only delaying the inevitable. So you can either go into this shit full force, guns a-blazing, or you could go into it being like, this will never happen to me. This isn't happening, and be so blind to it. It's still fucking happening. Absolutely. It's never going to not happen. The way that life works is that there's just, there's challenges that we have. There's lessons that we need to learn. There's just, steps that are taken to allow us to grow as individuals, because we have to grow. I mean, that's part of life. And you have to evolve as a person. And when you keep denying certain things or looking beyond it, that situation is going to come back over and over again. And each time it comes back, it's going to come back stronger and stronger and stronger and more hurtful until you learn that fucking lesson. So that state of denial has to stop. And that's kind of tied into that victim mentality of like, oh, it's not this. Oh, I can't believe, oh, this is not. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. You can't, and that's the thing. You have to believe them. And yes, people can change. They can have epiphanies. They can have all this stuff. But I would say the vast majority of them aren't what it is. And what that person has been in your life is a lesson. And that lesson is something that needs to be taught. It needs to help you grow as an individual. And it's something that's so utterly important for you to see clearly. So if you keep not seeing it clearly, ignoring it, it's going to get to the point where it's just going to come back. So like, to me personally, yes, I procrastinate on a lot of stuff because that's just what I love to do. But it's also, procrastination is different than ignoring and living in denial. Because that's that situation where, you have to see things for who they are, what they are, see people for who they are, and just understand that you need to see yourself for who you are. And when you start doing that, that starting over is going to naturally play itself into, it's going to play itself into a role in your life that now starts as a domino effect, where things are going to start to shift. And once they shift, it's going to change for the better. You also have to understand that rejection is redirection. I hate being rejected. I like to fucking win all the time. I do. I'm competitive. I even if I play a game, I'm competitive. Even when I'm driving, if the GPS says I'm going to get there at, 12:02, I'm going to get there before, just because I want to beat the clock. That's what I do. And when you're rejected by someone, it's almost like you feel like you're a failure. You're not. No. Rejection is the biggest blessing that you'll ever have, because it saves you fucking months and years of fucking the ultimate bullshit and the ultimate heartbreak, because it's going to happen. Or like a job. Here's a perfect example. I was just called, and as much as I'm an entrepreneur, I own, my own company. I've been in business since 2006. I am someone that, you know what, you offer me enough money, I will consider it. I am not stupid. So especially in an economy that's been so shaky, especially with my experience with the pandemic. And also too, I do a lot of consulting in companies where sometimes it works out that you might think that it's a full-time position, and then it turns out it could be a different kind of relationship where it is a consulting position, or they use your services for other reasons, or whatever the case is. You just never know where these opportunities lie. But this was an opportunity that came in, and from a professional standpoint, and I was not looking for it. It absolutely found me. I had 4 different meetings. It was really positive. I actually thought I was going to close this deal very quickly in the way that it was handled, and the way that the recruiter worked with me and was super supportive and super kind, and really she got me. And it was also a position too that I have done twice for major companies that I've been extremely successful with. So I think she also knew that I would be able to flourish in this job. The final interview, where I had to meet with the hiring manager, a full kit was put together, basically, the interviews that I've done, just basically a full, I don't even know what to call it. I don't know, a full folio on who I am, what I am, and what I'm about with the interviews and things like that, and what my career has taken me to this point, was presented to the hiring manager, and she wouldn't even take 30 minutes to see me. Which at some point, most people would be devastated. And I was actually fucking thankful, and I'll tell you why. And I said this to the hiring manager, which I'm sure she's probably listening right now laughing, but it's a blessing. And I'll tell you why. Because as the expert in hiring, she put together multiple interviews, multiple reasons to why she felt as though, as an expert in this role of sourcing individuals to hire, that this would be the right person for this job. The fact that the individual that would be making that decision didn't respect her opinion enough to even give her the benefit of the doubt of 30 minutes is a problem. And it's also something that it could be, as I said, because she was a woman. And like I said, we are a safe forum. But you do come into play where, you will come, especially in the workforce, is, sometimes there's a lot of insecurities or jealousies. And for me personally, I have been a woman who's headed event departments for Fortune 500 companies, and been in those positions where, personally, the way that I look at things is I like to hire people that are adults. I like to hire people that make me look better, because we're going to all learn together, and we're also going to grow together. But if I have people that are really great at what they do, they make us as a whole look better at what we do, especially if they know what they're doing, they're experts in their jobs, and they can just run and flourish and expand their career, because it's not just about me, it's about the bigger picture. And with that, it was abundantly clear that she didn't have a lot of respect for other people's opinions, which to me is a huge red flag. And secondly, it was a situation where the issues that they were having as a company, I was going to have to come in there and kind of clean it up. And I do that stuff very quickly. And it would have been a problem, because if she can't even respect an opinion, then we're looking at, I'm going to go come up with all these ideas that aren't the same ideas that they've been doing for the last 20 years. So this is how we've always done it. And this is how and there's reasons why they're not succeeding. There's reasons why they're not building revenue in areas that should be revenue generators. And there's all these reasons to why this is not happening, which is honestly, we'll call it what it is. Probably she's the reason why, but she's going to protect her position and her play by shutting that down and not having someone in there that's going to help make that change for the better. So, blessing in disguise, because I would have probably been fired in about 2 weeks, maybe 3 days. It would have been a crapshoot. Definitely wouldn't have made it 3 months. But that's the thing where it's just one of those situations where some may would have looked at it like, I really wanted this. I had my hopes up. I did the work. And now I didn't get what I wanted. And now I'm upset. I look at that as this is a blessing in disguise. This wouldn't have worked out. I made a great relationship with the hiring manager who may not be there forever. I made a great, and I had a great impression on a number of different people that may not be there and they might be at another company or, in another position, or things could change and they do need a contractor, they do need this, or you know what, they just want to outsource it to my company directly. There's so many different opportunities that can come out of it. The thing is, though, you don't see it right away. And that's the biggest thing of just understanding, just to have faith in that process. Because when it comes down to it, everything always falls into place. It seems like it's not. It seems like it's a shit show. And listen, I still get caught in it. I mean, I had a conversation yesterday. My conversation yesterday was like, I can't deal with another 2 weeks of 2023 acting like the majority of this and 2024 being like this. And I got in my own way again versus saying, you know what? It's not. It's gonna play itself out the way that it's supposed to play itself out. Opportunities are going to come because I did the work. And I did it in a way that was genuine, that was authentic. I wasn't living in a state of denial. I wasn't a victim being like, they didn't like me and that's why I didn't get the job. Bullshit. You know what? There was so many reasons why, and that's fine. But I'm not going to change who I am. And I know that I was the right person for that because I know that I could do what they needed me to do. I'm not knocking her to say I'm better. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I wasn't the right fit for it based on circumstances out of my control. But those circumstances out of my control could lead to different opportunities, and that's the way that I look at it. So, and I also come from a world where, I have been in positions where, with women, it becomes a challenge. Because I know I have a big personality. Shocker. But that being said, I have always said to women in these positions that for a woman to have a seat at that table, that does not mean another seat has to be taken away. And that's where we are here in Founding Her, is that those seats don't have to, we all have a seat at this table. And we all have reason to rely on each other and talk to each other and talk through things with each other, which is so critical because so many people just don't do this and they hold it inside and they feel rejected, or they'll be on LinkedIn looking at things and going, okay, well, this person has all these great careers and this job and this and that and whatever, or this person's married and they're happy. Perception's not always reality. And it's not about what other people are doing. You have to be happy within yourself. And you have to be, and it all starts with you. And, and with that, you really have to become introspective in understanding what your skills are, what your talent is, what motivates you, and what fucking inspires you. For me, things inspire me. Like, the arts have always been something that inspires me. With my job, I love to be creative. That's my favorite part of the job. Even though I might be better at negotiations, I might be better at, on-site production and just, these different things of making people feel at ease and comfortable and just really putting on an event that is flawless. I love the creative side. I love to still take dance classes. I love to find things that really make me feel inspired. And when you're taking these next steps of starting over, you need to look inside yourself and say, what the fuck makes me tick? I can't answer it for you, but you can answer it for you. And sometimes it might be that little girl all the way inside you from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago that's going to say, hey, you know what? This is what you love to do that you never had the opportunity to do. This is what you do. And in this day and age too, which is great with social media and great with career opportunities, is that, before social media, you didn't have the opportunity. I mean, you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be, a teacher, an accountant, whatever the case was. There were roles that were more defined. You can take your creativity and be able to define that role and define that job in a way that could be a way that you do monetize it, which is kind of awesome. So you do have those opportunities. You just have to think outside the box, which I hate that fucking term, but there's no other term for it. Like, you have to look at things and write them down and just kind of pull from where it is and pull from these different aspects and be like, this connects to this doesn't connect to this, and this connects to that. So where do these pieces all fit together? And it's a puzzle, but you have to do that after you've accepted the point that you are starting over, because you can't half-ass it. You can't go halfway and then be like, now I'm going to go back to where it's safe. Because that ship sailed. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. And, you have to make that decision wholeheartedly and genuinely and authentically. And, you'll listen. Every day I had what the fuck, and I'm not even a crier. And there was days that I would just cry because I was just like frustrated. I was frustrated because all these decisions in my life in the last 47 years had led me all the way up to this moment. And here I am. So I did that. And then I was like, wow, what if I didn't make those decisions? Or what if I didn't do this way? Or what if I didn't, go to college and be a dance major, or go to and be a business major, or be like, whatever those decisions were in your life brought you to this very moment. And that's all you can worry about. And that's all you can focus on is this very moment. And what the fuck are you going to do about it? And that's the most important thing, is that you've found that moment. You've accepted that life has kind of thrown that curveball at you, and you wail at it, and you fucking hit a home run. Now, that home run might not be your home run. You might just get to first base. You might get to second base. You might get out on second base and have to go batter up again. Told you I'm blonde. You have to batter up again and do it again. And maybe that time you get to third. But the bottom line is, each time you make an effort to change your life and change who you are and work and be introspective and really truly understand, what you need in your life at this moment, that's where that's gonna propel you to that next step. And a lot of people will be kicking and screaming, but no one can tell you how to do it either. You're gonna have to do it yourself. And that's super, super important too. So, that's starting over. I mean, shit happens, but it's how you get through it. And it's okay. But, I also kind of wanted to take the next step and just as we've talked about this, I reached out to my community, or our community, I should say. And I, asked a few questions about what, I want to get questions from you guys and have relatable, topics that really kind of work where, it makes sense. But, I asked the community, I said, hey, I asked my founders, I said, hey, give me some questions on what you think about starting over. And one of them was, is it worth taking the risk, or do I play it safe where I'm comfortable? And that's everyone's biggest fear. And I'm sure that hits home with you in any kind of, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's moving, whether it's a divorce, like whatever that case is, it's, that's the reality of starting over. And you've got two choices. You either live in pain or endure the pain to live, which I think is pretty fucking profound. But hey, no, just kidding. Let me go back. Let me say that again. Let me repeat myself. Like I said, you've got two choices. You either live in pain because you're stuck where you are, or you endure the pain to live. And that's a little pain goes a long way, but I promise you, when you look back, everything in your chapters are going to make complete sense to where you are today, and you're going to be proud of yourself. And I'm proud of you too. Okay, founders, so that's starting over. And, that's something that's going to happen over and over again in your life. And the more you're able to approach it in a way that you can get through it and hit it head on, the easier it's going to become each time. And it's just going to help you build your chapters in life and just make things more exciting. I mean, you're still going to have those what the fuck moments, but it's going to be viewed differently. And that's the most important thing. So as I've said, starting over sucks, but it doesn't have to be bad. And I'm here to help you through it. So if you have more questions, thoughts, topics, stories that you want to share, we are doing this together. So make sure you reach out to me. Send me a DM at Finding Her the Show, or you can always go to our website, which is standinformation.com. Like I said, that dance degree always kind of creeps in somewhere. But most importantly, like, follow, share, subscribe. We are in this together. We want to be here weekly for you. And I am excited, founders, to be here with you as we continue finding her.